In this video, we will take you on a fascinating journey through the evolution of marriage in India, starting from its ancient Vedic origins to the present day. We'll explore how the concept of marriage began as a sacred sacrament, how Islamic traditions influenced it during the medieval period, and how the arrival of Christianity and British colonial rule introduced new customs and legal reforms. We'll also delve into the significant changes that occurred post-independence, including modern legal frameworks that have shaped marriage into the diverse and dynamic institution it is today. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear understanding of how marriage in India has adapted over time, blending ancient traditions with modern values. The origins of marriage in ancient India. Our journey begins in ancient India, around 1500 BCE, during the Vedic period. This was a time when marriage wasn't just seen as a social contract or a legal obligation, it was considered a sacred sacrament, a samskara, one of life's key rites of passage. Marriage during the Vedic period was deeply rooted in religious beliefs and rituals. The Vedas, which are the oldest scriptures of Hinduism, along with the Dharma Shastras, provided detailed guidelines for marriage. The institution was considered indissoluble, blessed by the gods, and critical for the continuity of family lineage and the performance of religious duties. There were 8 types of marriages recognized in ancient texts, each with its own rituals and significance. These ranged from the Brahma marriage, considered the most prestigious, where a father would give his daughter to a learned man of good character, to the Gandharva marriage, which was based on mutual attraction and consent, what we might today call a love marriage. The Dharma Shastras, particularly the Manu Smriti, played a pivotal role in shaping Hindu marriage customs. These texts emphasize the importance of vivaha as a religious duty aimed at procreation and the continuity of the family. Key rituals like Kanyadan, the giving away of the bride, Saptapadi, the 7 steps around the sacred fire, and Mangal Sutra, the sacred thread, became integral to Hindu marriages, symbolizing the eternal bond between husband and wife. Each of these rituals carried deep symbolic meanings. For instance, Saptapadi, where the couple takes 7 steps around the sacred fire, represents their vows for a prosperous and harmonious life together. These vows cover everything from mutual respect to sharing responsibilities, to the commitment to live a righteous life. Kanyadan, the act of giving away the bride, was considered one of the most important and pious duties a father could perform. It symbolized the transfer of responsibility from the father to the husband and was seen as an act of immense spiritual merit. During this period, marriage was also a way to strengthen social bonds within communities. It wasn't just a union of 2 individuals, but a merging of 2 families, with elaborate ceremonies and rituals that often spanned several days, involving the entire community. As Vedic culture spread across the Indian subcontinent, these practices became deeply ingrained in society, influencing the way marriages were conducted across different regions. The concept of marriage as a sacred duty, essential for social and spiritual fulfillment, laid the foundation for how this institution would evolve in the centuries to come. Marriage in medieval India, a time of change. As India entered the medieval period, the institution of marriage began to change, influenced by the socio-political dynamics of the time. The advent of Muslim rule brought new customs, traditions, and even laws that began to intertwine with existing Hindu practices. During this era, marriages often took on a political dimension, especially among the ruling classes. Marriages were used as strategic tools to forge alliances between kingdoms and noble families, ensuring political stability and mutual protection. This period also saw the rise of child marriages, which were often arranged to secure these alliances at an early age. Child marriage, in particular, became prevalent as a means to secure alliances before potential conflicts could arise. It was seen as a way to cement ties between powerful families, often at the expense of the individuals involved. The Purdah system, which required women to cover themselves in public, also gained traction during this period, especially in the northern parts of India. Despite these changes, Hindu marriage rituals retained their core religious and cultural significance. The influence of Islamic culture introduced new customs, such as the dowry system, becoming more pronounced, and the seclusion of women becoming more widespread. However, the essence of marriage as a sacred bond, blessed by the divine, remained intact. In regions where Hindu and Muslim communities coexisted, we began to see a blending of traditions. For example, in some cases, Hindu weddings incorporated elements of Muslim customs, such as the signing of marriage contracts or the emphasis on bridal gifts, while Muslim weddings might adopt certain local Hindu practices. This period also marked the beginning of what we might call regional diversity in marriage customs. The way marriages were conducted began to reflect the diverse cultural landscape of India, with regional variations emerging based on local traditions, religious practices, and the influence of ruling powers. For the royalty and the nobility, marriages were grand affairs, with elaborate rituals, extensive dowries, and lavish celebrations. These weddings were not just family events, but public spectacles, showcasing the wealth and power of the families involved. The medieval period, therefore, was a time of both continuity and change, as marriage remained a vital institution, adapting to the shifting social and political landscapes. The British Colonial Era reform and resistance. The arrival of the British in India in the 17th century brought about significant challenges and reforms to traditional marriage practices. The British colonial administration, along with Christian missionaries, were critical of many Indian customs, particularly child marriage, sati the practice of widow emulation, and the treatment of widows. In response to these critiques, a wave of social reformers emerged in India, advocating for the rights of women and challenging the oppressive practices that had taken root over centuries. Leaders like Raja Ram Mohan Roy, who was instrumental in the abolition of sati, and Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, who championed the cause of widow remarriage, played pivotal roles in this transformative era. The Widow Remarriage Act of 1856 was one of the first significant legal reforms introduced during the British colonial period. This act allowed Hindu widows to remarry, challenging the deeply entrenched norms that condemned widows to a life of isolation and hardship. Another major reform was the Age of Consent Act of 1891, which aimed to curb the prevalence of child marriages by raising the legal age of consent for girls. These reforms were met with resistance from traditionalists, but also gained widespread support from progressive elements within Indian society. The British also introduced the concept of legal marriages, where the union could be recognized by law, independent of religious or social customs. This marked a significant shift from the purely religious and social framework of marriage to one that included legal rights and responsibilities. However, these legal reforms were not just imposed by the British. Indian reformers played a crucial role in shaping these laws, ensuring that they reflected the changing needs and values of Indian society. This period of reform laid the groundwork for the more comprehensive legal frameworks that would emerge in independent India. While traditional marriages continued to be the norm for most of the population, the concept of marriage as a legal contract began to take root, particularly among the urban and educated classes. This duality of marriage as both a sacred right and a legal contract would become a defining feature of Indian marriages in the modern era. Post-independence India, modernization and legal reforms. With India's independence in 1947 came a new era of legal reforms aimed at modernizing marriage practices across the country. The newly independent nation sought to create a legal framework that would unify the diverse practices and customs across its many communities, while ensuring that these laws reflected the values of a democratic and progressive society. One of the most significant legal reforms was the Hindu Marriage Act of 1955. This act codified Hindu marriage laws, introducing provisions for divorce, maintenance, and alimony. It established monogamy as the legal standard and provided legal recognition to inter-caste and inter-religious marriages. The act also addressed issues related to consent and the legal age of marriage, reflecting the progressive values of a newly independent nation. The introduction of divorce provisions was a groundbreaking change. For the first time, individuals, particularly women, were given the legal right to end unhappy marriages. This was a radical shift from the traditional view of marriage as an indissoluble bond, and it marked the beginning of a new era where personal choice and individual rights began to take precedence over societal expectations. The post-independence era also saw a gradual increase in the acceptance of love marriages and inter-caste marriages. While arranged marriages remained the norm, particularly in rural areas, the growing influence of education, urbanization, and exposure to global cultures began to challenge traditional norms. The legal system in India continued to evolve, with amendments to marriage laws addressing contemporary challenges such as domestic violence, dowry, and the rights of women within marriage. The introduction of the Special Marriage Act of 1954 allowed for civil marriages, providing an alternative to religious ceremonies for those who wish to marry outside their community or religion. The Special Marriage Act was particularly significant as it recognized the right of individuals to marry outside their religion or caste without being subject to the subject to the personal laws of their respective communities. This was a major step towards ensuring equality and individual freedom within the institution of marriage. Over the decades, these legal reforms have continued to evolve, reflecting the changing social and cultural landscape of India. The laws governing marriage have been amended multiple times to keep pace with societal changes, ensuring that they remain relevant and just. Today, marriage in India is a complex institution that blends ancient traditions with modern legal frameworks. While traditional arranged marriages remain prevalent, there is growing acceptance of love marriages, live-in relationships, and even same-sex unions, particularly in urban areas. Marriage in contemporary India, a blend of tradition and modernity. In contemporary India, marriage continues to be one of the most significant social institutions, but it has also become a reflection of the country's diverse and evolving cultural landscape. Today, we see a fascinating blend of tradition and modernity in the way marriages are conducted. In rural areas, traditional arranged marriages still dominate, with families playing a central role in the selection of partners. These marriages are often accompanied by elaborate rituals and ceremonies that have been passed down through generations. In contrast, urban areas are witnessing a rise in love marriages, where individuals choose their partners based on mutual attraction and compatibility. The influence of education, media, and technology, particularly dating apps, has made it easier for young people to meet and form relationships outside the traditional frameworks. Another significant change is the growing acceptance of diverse forms of relationships. Same-sex unions, while not yet legally recognized as marriages in India, are becoming more visible and accepted in urban areas. There is also a growing movement advocating for the legal recognition of same-sex marriages, reflecting the changing attitudes towards LGBTQ+ rights in the country. Live-in relationships, once considered taboo, are also becoming more common, particularly among the younger generation. The legal system has responded to these changes by providing certain protections and rights to individuals in live-in relationships, recognizing the need to adapt to the changing social landscape. Today, marriage in India is no longer a one-size-fits-all institution. It is a diverse and evolving entity that accommodates a wide range of beliefs, practices, and choices. From traditional arranged marriages to modern love marriages, from inter-caste unions to same-sex partnerships, the institution of marriage in India reflects the country's rich tapestry of cultures, values, and aspirations. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for more content on the rich tapestry of Indian culture.